Okay, so I think we've started the on-air hangout. It's now live. So welcome everybody that's viewing, and for those that want to have a look at it later, welcome on board too. So I guess just to start off with, I'll just explain why we're doing this. We're just going to have a bit of a discussion about HUBzero and in relation to how it can be potentially used as a collaboration platform. We're doing this now. It's probably a little bit early on in the piece for us to be talking with too great an experience about it. We just started working with Victoria University and a number of their researchers to help them out along the path of utilising HUBzero. So we thought we would take advantage of the interest around collaboration platforms that has been raised in the recent Nectar VL workshops. So we thought this would be a good opportunity to have a little bit of a hangout and a little bit of a discussion about the collaboration platforms, about sort of V3's journey with trying to provide the collaboration platforms to Victoria University and some of their researchers. So for that we have Rolf here, who is one of our sysadmins who's been looking at providing a stable platform for HUBzero, the disaster recovery and those sorts of implementation problems. So Rolf will talk a little bit about that. We've got Lyle from Victoria University here. He's going to talk a little bit about his views on how HUBzero could be used as a collaboration platform to support his researchers at his institute. And hopefully we're going to also get Michael McLennan on the line from HUBzero, who's the director of HUBzero. I think I've got that right. And he can talk to us a little bit more about the shiny, interesting features that are present within HUBzero. So over to Lyle. Did you want to take it from here, Lyle? Did you want to say something?
Yeah, sorry, just trying to Skype in Michael, that's all.
Yep.
Yeah, look, so we probably learned about HUBzero about 2 years ago. It was Steve Bennett actually that brought it up and said, look, we didn't know why people in Australia weren't using this technology. Can you hear me, Joe?
Yep, you're coming through loud and clear.
Sorry, just checking the Skype microphone works at the same time. When we had a look at it, it really kind of looked like a quintessential research collaboration environment. So subsequently I proposed it for a couple of different research projects at VU, which hadn't got up. But recently there are now currently 2 e-research projects at VU which will be using this, and we can show you a bit more about that a little later. There are a number of features to like in HUBzero, but for these particular projects it was about the ability to be able to blend open communities and public and private groups all in the one space, and it does it really well, and that's the reason why we chose it for those projects. We're not in operations at the moment. We don't have researchers who've got access to it, but because of some of the recent Nectar virtual laboratory discussions around collaboration, we thought it was best to talk about it early rather than not talk about it at all. Now we should have Michael McLennan here, who's actually the executive director of HUBzero at Purdue University in the US, to talk to us about it. Michael.
Reason why we chose these projects. And we're not in operations at the moment. We don't have researchers who've got access to
Michael, can you hear us?
Because of some of the
I'm here.
You can. Okay, Jared, can you hear Michael?
we thought it was best to talk about it early.
Sorry, I've got.
Now we should have Michael McLennan here, who's actually the executive director of HUBzero at Purdue.
Look, Michael, I might actually hang up on this. I'm not sure how to.
Us about it.
To make it not work.
Michael.
Yeah. Hi. Can you guys hear me?
Can hear you on Skype, but there's a bit of a delay with the Google Hangout.
Okay, Jared, can you hear Michael?
Sorry, I've got. I think we have kind of an unholy alliance of Skype and Google Hangout. Is there a way to get me on the Google Hangout?
We do. We have invited you on the Hangout, but you need to have Google Hangouts running and then accept the invite.
So I did set up the Google Hangouts running on my desktop.
Oh, okay. Have you seen the invite pop up?
Yeah, it's got, but there's a bit of a delay with the Google.
So I still don't see the invite on my side. I think we have kind of an unholy alliance of Skype and Google Hangout. Is there a way to get me on the Google Hangout?
We do. We had invited you on the Hangout, but you need to have Google Hangouts running and then accept the invite.
Jerry, could you attempt an invite perhaps one more time?
I'll try it again. If
we might actually
bit, that would be
tape your bit a bit later and add it on to the Hangouts, if that's okay. It seems to be.
Yeah, that seems a little bit better. Okay, so I've invited Michael again. We have been having problems with this today for some strange reason. Invitations don't seem to go through very well.
Are you there, Michael?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not seeing an invitation at all.
Are you hearing Michael, Jerry?
I am hearing Michael okay. I have invited Michael again.
Well, look, we've lost the feedback, Michael, so maybe we'll just actually do it this way via the audio. I can present your presentation over video, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's great. I can't really see what's on the screen, but I guess I'll just look at what I've got on my desktop and try to walk through it.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry for the funny connection, but glad to be talking to you guys about HUBzero. I know you know a little bit about it, so I have this presentation that will give you a little sense of what it does, and then some quick demos and also more of the organizational. So if you're on the slide that says, what is HUBzero? HUBzero is an open source software platform that we use to build these websites that are science gateways or collaboratories, and we call them hubs. But it's open source, and we've used it a lot at Purdue, but there are probably 25 or 30 hubs around the world that I've seen other people creating with the open source. So if we flip to the next slide, simulation and modeling tools, that's really the core of HUBzero and how it grew up. It started with the NanoHub project, the idea of getting tools online so that researchers could use powerful research codes, run them on cluster machines, and share them with others in the community. So I don't know if you can click on the, oh, you don't have the movie, and I can't share my screen, so I won't show the movie. But the basic thing is that the tools, as you can see on the screen here, have a lot of integrated visualization. So you can see, for example, carbon nanotubes that rotate around them in real time. You can interact with three-dimensional BTK simulations, doing all of this through your web browser. So that the tools are built to be very graphical and interactive with integrated visualization, and again tied into cloud and grid and cluster computing resources. So the next slide is the databases and digital assets. So after we started creating tools, people said, well, that's nice, but we have a lot of data that we want to share as well. So we have a capability now in HUBzero where you can create databases, and you can send publish them online and share them with the community. You can have databases that are open for contributions, or you can keep it very guarded in terms of who can contribute to the databases. When you publish things on the hub, we can use digital object identifiers to help track the asset, and we can provide licensing options like Creative Commons or open source licensing. And even nowadays, we have a way of connecting data and tools. So you might be browsing through a data set, choosing some records, and then launching a tool to do analysis on the records from the databases. So on the next slide, talks about online education. We've gone beyond the basic simulation and data. People are using these assets now to create courses and to teach students. So now we have an integrated, I guess what you'd call a MOOC platform, the massive open online courses that people are doing nowadays. We have a MOOC platform in HUBzero that includes an interactive kind of drag and drop course builder, so you can create courses. You can have hands-on homework assignments, again, leveraging the tools and the data sets, tell the students to do a simulation or browse a database and pull out the right set of records. We have discussion forums integrated, even grade books. You can earn certificates and electronic badges So there's a kind of a big framework we've built up, and that's being used by NanoHub and by Purdue Next, those two projects. And then next, the next slide is collaboration. So in order to do all of those things, build tools, build data sets, people write proposals and publish things, they typically do that working in groups or working on projects. So we have two capabilities, kind of a social groups capability, but also kind of a very focused private project capability where people upload files, share files, and work on them to produce tools and data. And the groups and the projects have things like messages that you can message other users, wikis, blogs, calendars, things like that that you can use for kind of project coordination and communication. And the projects have a data repository with versioning where you actually can upload your data and store it and keep it under control before you publish it finally to the world. So the next slide kind of shows all four of those things together. HUBzero is really this platform for scientific collaboration that has not only computational tools and databases, but the group project collaboration and learning management all in kind of one integrated platform. If you think about HUBzero as a software platform, it's really an Apache website running Linux, Apache, MySQL, and PHP, so kind of your traditional LAMP stack. And we've created about 40 modules for HUBzero to implement all the various components. So, groups is one component, and there are various plugins for the wikis and discussions. And then there's the learning management courses component and so forth. So it's really a platform where you can create new components and slide them in to the infrastructure to create new functionality. But these are kind of the four big things in the platform. So the next slide talks about NanoHub. This all started with NanoHub back in 2002, and there's been a number of awards that have kind of kept it going since. NanoHub's now up to almost 700,000 visitors around the world every year. We only look back 12 months. So it's growing and growing, about 700,000 visitors a year now. Of those, about 300,000 users stick around and actually use the platform. So 300,000 people are kind of returning, downloading things, using the courses and the tools and so forth. So that it's really grown over the last 12 years. The next slide kind of plays through an animation of how that happened over the last 12 years or so. Again, starting with NanoHub and going to 1,000 users, we created the Rapture Toolkit. By 2008, we had about 60 tools, and by 2010, we had 100,000 users, and we thought that was really terrific. But it's just grown since then. We spun out HUBzero as a separate project right around late 2007, early 2008. We started creating hubs at Purdue based on HUBzero. We did a public release of the open source software for HUBzero in 2010. In 2011, we got a Campus Technology Innovator Award, and it's just kind of grown since then with more and more hubs and more people using it. There are more than 60 hubs now that I can count active and online around the world, and again, lots of people. The next slide kind of shows a summary of all those hubs. There's again more than I guess I used to say 50. It's more than 60 now. And if you look at the visitors and the user counts of all of those biggest hubs, the top ones, again, NanoHub is far and away the largest one, but the Nice hub is pretty big. They've got more than 300,000 visitors and 100,000 users. And if you look down the list, you can see even a lot of the hubs have at least 30 or 40,000 users every year. And if you put it all together, there's about 1.5 million visitors from all those hubs that are all using HUBzero in one way or another across all the various hubs. So it's really growing. The next slide after that is kind of shows the support staff that we have. So HUBzero started with just a couple of people at Purdue, but it's grown up now. We have 25 people, full-time staff, working in this recharge center at Purdue, and they're all working on various hubs. We have 27 hub projects here at Purdue that help fund our development. It's about $3 million a year when you put it all together across the 27 projects. And so we have 25 full-time staff, some of those in support and operations, dealing with customers, a lot of people working on web development and databases and analytics, a few people doing middleware and high-performance computing, and some people working on visualization and our Rapture Toolkit. So when you put it all together, it's a pretty large team, 25 full-time staff, kind of developing new capabilities all the time for the platform, driven by all these projects that we service. The next slide talks about kind of that global community beyond Purdue. So there are people that have picked it up and are using it all around the world. And again, 27 hubs at Purdue, but you'll also find hubs at Indiana University in Wisconsin, Clemson, Washington State, Notre Dame, and even various countries around the world. So we created this HUBzero Foundation as a not-for-profit LLC. So it's a non-profit organization, kind of like the Mozilla Foundation. It's the independent owner of the HUBzero code, so the copyright belongs to the HUBzero Foundation. And really, it's an organization that helps promote and disseminate the code and outreach. So, for example, it sponsors our annual HUBhub conference and kind of brings people in, and it also works to coordinate software contributions that we get from the outside world. The next slide actually just advertises our HUBzero user conference, HUBhub 2014, which is coming up. If you're interested in learning about HUBzero, this is a really terrific opportunity. It's 2 days of plenary talks in the morning and then hands-on training in the afternoon. And we have a track for web developers and a track for simulation tool developers, and we have other talks and things going on, user meetings and things going on. And then on October 1st this year, we have our HUBzero Challenge, which is kind of an all-day hackathon event. So the people who have gone through the training for the web development and the tool development can spend a whole day working on a component, and the experts will be there to kind of answer questions as they're doing their development. So we have this 2-day conference and a hackathon event in Indianapolis coming up at the end of September, and a really great way of learning all about HUBzero and seeing what everybody else is doing with all their hubs. So the last slide really is just my information in case you're interested in more information about what HUBzero is about, and I can turn it over back to you guys now for any questions. Trying to answer questions as they're doing their development. So we have this 2-day conference and a hackathon event in Indianapolis.
So what I might do is actually stop sharing my screen for a second. Thanks for that, Michael. That was really good. I think it worked as well as could be expected for a Skype kind of connect into a Google Hangout. And fortunately, I think I got most of the animations right, other than video.
Super, glad to hear it. Yeah, I tried to put the Hangouts back on, and it seems like it's running a little behind. But
yeah.
Anyway.
So I don't know if the Q&As are actually happening at the moment or not. But we might actually see if there's any questions at the end.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm not sure how you want to handle the questions. You can kind of keep me muted and just kind of link me in, I guess, whenever there's a question or something.
Yeah, at the moment I can see that there's Jamie Sunderland has actually joined and suggesting to us that we probably should have used Zoom. He might be right.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I've used Hangout within the States before and never really had much of an issue. It just sort of seemed to work. I don't know what happened here.
I had some server connection problems today, so there might be something happening there. But we were working it with the other day and it just worked. But look, I think I'll probably maybe do a little bit of a show and tell about what we were looking at in terms of HUBzero. If I can change to one of my screens down here somewhere. So of the 2 projects that we're using for HUBzero, one of which is connected to our Institute for Supply Chain and Logistics, and V3 at the moment working on that to try and make it look really good and actually, eventually do some development work to pull some data sets into it. So that's an exciting project. That's probably going to be in collaboration with about 40 industry partners. So that's a kind of a collaboration there. As I mentioned before, one of the things we really liked about HUBzero is this ability to do both open community or closed and public groups, and this project collaboration level as well, which I think fits this model really well. These guys are also very interested in the ability to be able to share resources across all those areas in data sets and white papers, that sort of thing. So we have a hub that's at the moment just basically a test site for Victoria University as a whole, as a way for us to be able to tell the community more about our research projects and allow a lot of our industry and community partners to join into our research projects. And you can see I've kind of logged in there. At the moment it's looking very vanilla. Michael, you'll recognise it's not much different than it was before. But just to show a few people what it looked like, because you can get the videos to work, you can actually see what projects and groups you're involved in. Once you log in, you have a bit of a dashboard and any particular things that you're currently working on, as well as questions and things that you might have within the hub. Just to see what the hub main looks like, this is a slightly cut down version. One of the things we found about the hub is that it does actually populate a lot of information for you and tell you that you should be having terms and conditions, privacy policies, those sorts of things, customizing them for yourself. In the community section, which is where you find the groups and the projects, you can look for a range of groups. Groups can be private or they can be public. You can quite quickly see the groups that you own or that you're a part of. Underneath your groups you'll find a whole range of social tools, including the ability to have information sharing through wikis, sharing of resources, discussions, those sorts of things. But in addition, groups themselves can actually own projects. So people can actually have projects within their communities that are more private spaces. Or projects can exist outside of groups. And as Michael mentioned before, these kinds of projects allow you to quickly share files amongst a team of people, organise a range of tasks for people to do, and actually keep track of when things are occurring and when they've been done, as well as have a bit of a notes section as well, a bit of almost like a wiki, I guess. Under the resources section, which is something that we are also looking at, and I think David Abramson was mentioning the other week in the Nectar Forum that one of the real benefits of the Nano Hub was that there was almost a bleed effect of a lot of the tools and the resources that had occurred and had been developed by researchers in the Nano Hub community and then been made available to students for use in coursework. So that was one of the real great success stories there. So we're seeing a lot of benefit there, or ability, I guess, for our researchers to be able to make resources available to people on a wider level. And these resources could be private, they could belong only to some groups where people actually have to be approved members of those groups, or they could be public resources, the kinds of things that you want to promote. And another thing that might be interest to the virtual laboratories, but not something that we're necessarily looking at, is there's a number of other different tools in there that might actually be helpful for them. One of which is a knowledge base. So if you need to do a certain amount of Tier 0 support within your virtual laboratory, that could be quite useful. There's some basic information populated there already. It's fairly typical, and you can do full text search. There is also the ability to do help desk ticketing, so people can submit a query. They can see how their tickets are going, whether or not somebody's looking at their tickets. At the administrative side of things, there's ways for people to manage a whole range of different tickets and assign them to other people. So, for instance, I submitted a ticket saying I couldn't use something, and then an administrator, me, actually said, this doesn't look like you're using the right thing. And you can do tracking of those sorts of tickets as well. Wish lists might also be useful for virtual laboratories that do a lot of development work, where communities can propose changes or suggestions and people can vote on them. And once something's accepted, you can actually add plans to the implementation of that particular thing to let the community know what's happening. And as I mentioned before, Nano Hub, for example, if we have a look at the Nano Hub, under the resources, there's an immense amount of training materials there, conferences and workshop presentations that are useful for helping the community to use your tools are all available under NanoHub, so I recommend you get on there and actually have a bit of a look. And that's probably about all I wanted to actually mention. The other thing I thought which would be good, and something that I've shown people a few times, is that hubs can be both as massive, 300,000 users as NanoHub, and also a lot smaller. And I really love the example of DryNet Hub, which is about drought research initiative in Indiana, in the United States. It's a lot smaller, it's a lot more focused, but they're doing a lot of work there to actually make available data sets and data portals on top of those data sets. And if you have a look, a lot of the tools that are actually not necessarily a part of the hub itself, but the hub actually brings it all together and allows people to be able to access the data set. So it's a portal, it's something that joins your help, your community, your resources, and the project developments as they occur. So that's really all I wanted to mention. Michael, did you want to add anything to that? Did I misrepresent something horribly?
No, you did a super job. I'm glad that you're kind of clicking around and showing people. That's a great way to explain it.
Yeah, I think best way to have a look is actually just to see how people have used it. NanoHub's great because it's definitely more science-based, and I think the DryNet Hub's good because it's a bit of a smaller community, and it's a lot more access to data focused. It seems to be.
Yeah, there's another good example too of a small community. There's Cancer Care Engineering Hub, and in their case, they're actually dealing with HIPAA data. They keep the community small on purpose. They never want to have a large community because they're dealing with sensitive data, and that the only way you can really get in is if you're approved to work on certain projects. So in that case, it makes perfect sense that the hub is small and it's all locked down.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Sorry, could very easily find that. It's really good.
Yeah. No, and DryNet's good too. But, just mentioning different examples.
Yeah.
I think that's a very good example because we do have a large contingent of medical research in Victoria and Australia as well. So seeing how that can be applied in sort of the medical research space, I think is really cool.
Looks good. Looks good. Anyway, that's about all I wanted to say. Jared, have we got any other questions? I don't think we have any further questions there. Don't know if Jamie's still with us.
No, I think Jamie may have ditched it and gone to Zoom for something else. So we have Rolf here as well, who's been, I guess, poking around in the back end a little bit more and sort of standing up some of these HUBzeros. The Centre for Logistics that Lyle had up a little while ago was one that Rolf has stood up on the Nectar Research Cloud, which seems to be going okay. Did you want to talk a little bit about kind of your experiences as a novice or as someone getting introduced to it?
As a novice, I look at it entirely from the system administration perspective, specifically from the point of view of making sure we do good backups and good restores, mainly in a disaster recovery scenario rather than an individual user restore. Someone lost something. That really I didn't look at. It was mainly if the thing breaks, let's fix it completely. So I started by looking at what it did, which meant browsing around it and adding content as much as I could and that sort of thing. Then looking at all the bits and pieces, looking at the SQL storage and the Apache document systems, document root and all of that sort of thing, and whatever other files there are. So in order to gather all of the bits together to make it into a backup script of some sort, which means I'm going to have to dump out the SQL data, I'm going to have to dump out the user directories in LDAP, I'm going to have to in various file system backups in order to get all that together and then shipped off to another host for safekeeping. And after having done that, I have to develop a system of restoring it. The main issue with this restoring is I'm aiming for a completely one button restore, so that having got one Linux installation, a host. You then start the restore, and without any further interaction, you get the HUBzero, the hub back that you got exactly the way you had it. We haven't got that far yet. We've got the SQL dumps and the file system data all lined up. Once we put that together and get it using something like rsync, or we haven't actually decided yet, off to another host. After that's all done, the script involved, what we need to do is take all that data and get it back in an orderly fashion, so that once it's finished, you get the hub back just like you found it before you lost it. That's the ultimate goal of this particular task. And essentially, that's all. That's as much as we've done. We've just looked at the technical back end, the SQL, the Apache, the PHP to a different extent. The terms of installing it, using a HUBzero, the dedicated repository just to get the packages, that's made life much easier. We can interrogate the package management to say what HUBzero components are here, and identify them easily, and then in terms of restore, we can just go and get them again and put them in, and then we add the content to it. So that's proved fairly straightforward. As I say, the ultimate goal will be to get to the point where we can get the data from the backup and put it onto a new instance, and it all just works. And that's the ultimate goal.
Thanks for that, Rolf.
Yeah, it might be worth mentioning that David Flanders and maybe a few people have said, "Oh, when are we going to get a Nectar instance?" And we haven't got one yet because there's still a few things we're ironing out. But look, happy to give anybody an install script. And if you go through it, there's a few kind of tweaks that the install script does, but the majority of it is just package installation, apt-get. It's based on the Debian 6 and the Nectar supported base install distro of that one seems to work okay.
Yeah, it's not the hardest thing in the world to stand up and get running, which is a nice thing.
Yeah, one of the things I noticed is doing the install is when you're creating the databases, you're going to need to modify the way that works, because the restore has a Cat22 problem in that you need to know your SQL credentials in order to put the data into it. But when you do the backup, there's no easy way of finding the SQL credentials. So I'm yet to work out how to. I can do it. But I just work out the details of how the credentials exist in an existing install in order to get them back to do the install. So that's a problem to be solved.
Yeah, and I should quickly say that Jamie is still here watching and asking questions.
Yeah, that's what
I accused him of leaving prematurely, but he is still here.
Yep. Well, that's interesting because I can't see Jamie in the list of watchers. I can see David Abramson. So.
Well, it is a public event, so he may have just gone to the link and watching it and asking questions without accepting in the event itself.
Yeah. Okay.
Which is not helpful for talking about HUBzero.
Yep. Well, look, Jared, I think that about wraps that up. That should give people a lot of info. Any further questions? You can email yourself, Rolf?
No.
Well, yeah, if anyone has questions, email either, I guess, you could email V3, myself, or Rolf, or I guess potentially you, Lyle, if they're interested in how you're using it for your researchers. And it sounds like Purdue is open for questions as well from Michael's end.
Yeah, it sounds like, Michael, either you're going to be out in Australia later this year, or you're actually going to be hooking up through is it just that you're hooking up through high def through Monash and UQ?
I actually don't have a plan to come to Australia. I think it's on my bucket list of things to do. So I'm glad that you guys are interested in HUBzero. Maybe I can get there yet.
All right, okay. Yep. We have a national e-research conference that occurs once every year, which would be a good time to come out and see what's happening.
Yeah, no kidding. When is that?
Good question, Jared.
It's November, isn't it? Typically it's in November, towards the end of the year. This year's one will be in Melbourne.
Okay, I'll have to look into that. That'd be super.
Yeah, yeah, but everyone kind of shows up. A lot of the virtual laboratories, a lot of the national projects. So that's good.
Great.
Okay,
Well,
thanks.
yep. Thank you very much, Mike, for attending and giving a talk. I think that's provided a lot of valuable information that people didn't know, and Lyle for showing how you think it's useful for your researchers at VU. I think it's probably answering a lot of questions that people have. Interesting. Sorry, I'm just reading a question from Jamie. Interesting. I think I'm going to take that as a comment. Interesting overview, part LMS, part Cloud Store, part Nectar, etc. So thanks for that, Jamie.
Yeah, it might be worth mentioning, Jamie, if that some of the interesting bits is it's built on top of a content management system. So to make your community look snazzy and just actually, put up a lot of static information is dead easy. But then there's all these modules that have been added onto it for collaboration and LMS, including things for high performance computing, as Michael mentioned. It's really good. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess we wrap this up, and this will go to a resource on YouTube that people can look at their leisure later. So thanks everyone, thanks Rolf, thanks Lyle, thanks Michael, and we'll stop it there. Talk to you guys later.
Bye, guys.